Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with writer, author, and award-winning publisher C.K. Collins. After a one-year traveling sabbatical, she wrote her first book called The Swipe Right Effect, The Power to Get Unstuck. It is a nonfiction creative memoir that highlights great advice from friends at home and friends she met in travels all over the world. After experiencing a significant loss over 5 years ago, Kelly was searching for a new life, her new joy, and a new love. She chose to do the hard work to heal and found a new path to empowerment. This book is available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. Enjoy this interview.
It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
So before we get into your life, your very interesting life as a writer and author and publisher, I want to know, especially today, this particular day has to be PTSD for a lot of people on Earth because this was when everything began with COVID about 3 years ago. And I'm curious how you survived that time period and how it's changed the way that you conduct business and live your life now.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, from that day on for, as you know, probably months, like 6-7 months, we were in a 24/7 news cycle. So I went from what felt like just a business owner that owned a newspaper to I was helping cover the news 24/7 for we owned 8 newspapers at the time. So that was like a really crazy moment. But what came out of that once everything calmed down was a deep desire to live a life of freedom. And I made a lot of decisions, and I was very lucky that my brother was my financial advisor. And I made a lot of decisions to follow that dream. And I just walked into his office and said one day, what if I sell my house and I give away everything and I travel for a year? And he said, all right, let's take a look. And we, used the whiteboard and we figured it out. And that's what I did. In May of 21, I sold the house and gave away everything, and I traveled for a year, and it was all about freedom for me, freedom from my old life and freedom to live a new life.
That's fascinating. Are you going to write anything? Have you written anything about this?
I did write about it in the book that's out now, The Swipe Right Effect, The Power to Get Unstuck, and it's about the 5 years since my divorce and really just everything leading up to that decision. I write about that. And it's really also about friendship and how my friends helped me heal. But my next book will be The Traveling Effect, and I'm going to write about that exact year and all the different places I went and people I met. And I really want people to kind of see solo travel in a new light, especially people who've been in long-term marriages and never really did that. And it was life-changing for me to do that and to give it all up. And I never would have written this book had I not gone on that journey and worked on myself, so to speak.
So let's get a better handle on what you do on a daily basis. Now, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day at a grade school. And one of the kids is going to look up at you and ask, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that child?
I write about the stories from my life. I like to tell about conversations I've had with people. I like to interview people like you're doing right now, Joe. And I like to weave that into a story of something that would help someone. Each chapter in my book is a story about my life and a piece of advice that somebody gave me that helped me improve my life. And then I interview that person and I ask how they learned the advice. And so I like to tell stories that help people.
So when you were young, say around the third grade, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
Third grade, I did want to be a writer, and then I kind of lost that for a while, and I ended up coming back around to it. It's funny, I owned a newspaper, so I paid a lot of writers, but I was busy doing all the things to make money to pay the writers and didn't get to write myself. So I wanted to be a writer, and I came back to it, luckily.
So let me ask you this, as a journalist and writer, what's the hardest part about it?
To me, the writing the book was not the hard part. The hard part has come after, and it's all about learning how to tell people about your book and asking them to buy it. Sometimes it's hard to ask people to do things for you. And I have found that if I can be brave and make that ask, that people are more than willing to help. People in general want to help somebody who's helping themselves. And sometimes people like me, I want to help people who don't know how to help themselves. So I've had some wonderful mentors along the way in this book writing and book promoting process. But it's really about meeting people, and I'm really good at that. So that's making it enjoyable, but that's pretty much what I do, is talk to people about my book now.
What was the first book when you were a kid that you read that really opened the doors up to either make you want to write or read more?
I would say that kind of pivotal book. I wasn't super young. I was supposed to have read it in high school, and I think I read the Cliff Notes instead. But I picked up Pride and Prejudice, and I think my freshman year, probably the summer before I went to college at Ole Miss in my freshman year. And that book just connected with me, and I really just started seeing how Jane Austen was crafting the words and how she was visualizing these people being in the room together. And I just all of a sudden wanted to write like that. And I remember going to my English class, 101, whatever, at Ole Miss, and telling her that. And she said, well, you have some work to do. But yeah, that book was pivotal for me, and I've read it multiple times now.
Speaking of pivotal things in life, who's been a role model or a hero for you?
My mom. My mom is an amazing spiritual woman. She was a bad-to-the-bone businesswoman in an industry that was very male-dominated, the commercial real estate industry in Nashville. And she held her own, and she also brought other women together. There's a real estate kind of nonprofit that she was an integral part of creating. And so her spiritual life, her nonprofit life, and her business life were very inspirational to me, and I have been active in all of those roles too as I grew up. And I wanted my kids to have an upbringing like I had, and hopefully I've been a good enough role model for them too.
So I'm curious, what would be a dream interview for you? Anybody alive on the planet, who would you love to sit down and talk to and interview? Brene
Brown. She has written books and given speeches. I'll never forget the first time I watched Call to Courage on Netflix, and it's basically her giving a lecture. And she talks about vulnerability and courage, and she literally helped me see myself in a completely different way. I would love to interview her. And if I can do two, I would love to interview my grandfather, who was a World War II pilot, and he died when my mom was 6 months old, and I've always wondered what he was like.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the younger version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained, the roads you've been down so far. What advice would you give your younger self?
To trust your intuition. Don't let other people change your mind when you know deep down inside that either something is truly good, something is truly bad, or it's okay. And then, it's okay to not make a move sometime. If your intuition says, stay right here and be careful, then to listen to myself. There's been times in my life where I doubted my own intuition, and now I look back and I understand that was really one of my greatest strengths, was my intuition was good. And so that's what I would tell myself. Trust yourself.
So what is it every day that gets you up out of bed, motivates you through the day, makes you accomplish and do what you do with your life?
Gratitude. I am so grateful for the life that I have and the opportunities that I have. I'm grateful my children are healthy and my parents are healthy and that I'm healthy. I have a really joyful life right now. And if you have the opportunities that I have right now to do what I love so much, to do that without gratitude is pretty meaningless. So I wake up and give thanks every day, and it's a privilege.
So, of everything that you've done in your life, what is it that you're proudest of?
My children, they have turned out to be extremely empathetic, fun, loving people, and they care about the world. And I tell people all the time, I taught my kids that they needed to get outside of this bubble that we lived in suburbia and understand what was happening in the world. And they turned around and taught me that you didn't just see it, you did something with it. And they really taught me about social justice as they became involved in things. And they kind of did all the same things I was doing, and they just took it to a whole nother level. And I really admire all three of my children. And so teaching them and then turning around and learning from them.
So being on the road for that long and seeing the world, what was the top thing that you realized about being, just kind of a part of the American fabric? What is it that was the most revelatory?
I actually lost a very dear friend that I had gone on this in November. Like, I just started the journey, and we did a sailing rally. It was a crew of 5 people, and we were on a boat together for 30 days. and that adventure was just monumental. It was scary for me. I'd never really been sailing. I'd never been that far out to sea unless I was on a huge cruise ship. And then 3 months later, I'm hiking in Portugal, and I hear that my friend died. And it drove home how short life is, and that every minute is there for you to be joyful. And if you're not and you're stuck, then you've got to find a way out. And I was stuck. I had been stuck because of my divorce, and I found my way out of it, over time. But when I saw how short life was through that death, that it just drove me forward. And I had this desire to write about it and to talk about how I got unstuck and all that advice that people had given me, and to don't waste any more time being stuck.
What's been one of the best fan letters or responses you've gotten from your writing over the years?
It was probably the first one after this book. It was a friend of a friend. I really didn't know this person, and they really didn't know me. They just kind of knew me from Facebook. And she wrote me a private message on Facebook, and she said, you had the bravery to say something that I've needed to say for a very long time. I didn't know that other people felt this way and had been hurt this way. And you were brave, and so now I know I can be brave.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, colleagues, clients, but ultimately you're in control. You live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a very ambitious, in a loving way. I am somebody who wants to help people. I've always been very involved in nonprofits. I've always thought that I could use my skills for good, and nothing feels better than helping someone else. And I'm glad I learned that at a young age, because it became part of who I am and my fabric, and I was able to share that. But I'm just a normal person, but I think I can do extraordinary things, and I want to do those in the name of good.
So if anyone out there wants to pick up the books, learn more about you, anything related to your world, where is the best place to go?
I have a website. It's ckcollins.co, And the book can be found on Amazon, and the name of it is The Swipe Right Effect, The Power to Get Unstuck.
Wonderful. CK, this has been great. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really had fun.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.